So, hey guys, today we're talking about Tenpai and why I think Tenpai is not so good. So, before Tenpai's release, well, we didn't have any going second decks that actually like just killed on empty board pretty much. In terms of decks that could do that, I could only think of the rank 8 spam deck. So, the one that plays like Gizmic Orochi and then the level 8 Kaijus and Fairy Tale Luna to return the Kaijus and summon them again. This would be your only normal summon, I believe. And the synergy is obviously that because you aren't playing the Kaijus, they can return the Kaijus and Kaiju you again. And if you negate this, then you're down a negate, which is still fine. And you also run a bunch of board breakers like Dusters, Lightning Storms, right? Gekis, like that type of thing. And you also run rank 8s like I believe Mech Knights. You would use those and what's his face? Danger Bigfoot. So that's the general idea, and then you would just simply use Numeron Dragon to OTK. You can OTK through the Kaijus. That's just that's just an option. Kinda depends though what you do exactly, or you could go into a Big Zeus, which now that I think about it, this deck kind of got nerfed now that Ty-phon has been released because they really rely on making a multiple activation Zeus because from rank 8s you can go into something like I don't remember exactly what monster, but it's like we go into Lancelot, into um, Ravenous Tarantula, and then Zeus or something like that, and you could potentially go into Seven Sins off of afterwards and then go Zeus for like a 5-mat Zeus or 4-mat if Lancelot activated. So you have that, but now we can normal summon like an Ash Blossom to a Spring or something, and then we can make Ty-phon and we out the Zeus. So that deck might be a little bit worse now, just simply because Ty-phon exists. But for the most part, yeah. If you are forced to go first, it was a pretty valid option to just simply pass turn, and then your opponent can't do anything to you because they're playing a going second deck. Like in the case of Numeron, you'd be running a bunch of Kaijus and board breakers and stuff, or maybe hand traps. And if we end on nothing, all we can do at best, assuming we don't open like limiter removal, we activate Numeron Network by whatever means. We could do it by Planet Pathfinder, Numeron Wall, whatever. Point is, we activate Numeron Network, we send Numeron Calling, and then we can special summon these four XYZ guys, and we just attack into nothing, and we do 4k. Because this effect here is pretty important. At the end of the damage step, if discard battled an opponent's monster, you can detach one material from discard, double attack of all Numeron monsters you currently control. Long story short, you don't control a guy, no lethal for the most part. And then with Makanko, same kind of deal. Makanko also has the equivalent of a limiter removal with the double-edged sword. If you don't have the double-edged sword or access to the double-edged sword, then you're really doing nothing here. So, yeah, you can't really kill anyone with a bunch of 0 attack monsters. So, yeah, well, I mean, if it's an empty board, right? So, can't reflect nothing. So, yeah. Makanko, same kind of issue. But now with Tenpai's release, just simply because Tenpai exists, all Tenpai needs to do to lethal is normal summon essentially any Tenpai, except for this one. This one's pretty bad in that situation, but we can have Hydra, Chundra, Sangan Kaiman, Sangan Summoning, Genroku, Dora Dora. All of these guys are immediately lethal, and they're lethal through just set a guy and a few other things. So we can kill with essentially just normal summon Chundra. That is many a way to kill instead of just hard open this specific 2-card combo, which is a lot better in that regard, right? But now, because Tenpai simply exists, so now that we have Tenpai, this can actually just kill as a going second deck against an empty board, which I know sounds insane. We can kill, and our opponent just has no board. Crazy stuff. So now that we have this, we can just force our opponent to more or less play the game. Just from Tenpai existing, because Tenpai right now is probably the most commonly played going second deck. That doesn't necessarily mean right now it would be the best going second deck, if you know what I mean. So, because Tenpai simply exists now, if I am playing like Mikanko or even Mech Knights, which also has the issue of my opponent doesn't have any cards on their field, so I can't summon my Mech Knights. Well, now that my opponent does have guys or cards, in the case of Mech Knights, then I can now set up my OTK, and my deck actually might have better board breaking potential than Tenpai. So for example, Tenpai really struggles with certain monsters, but one monster we can just say with pretty high certainty that we can't deal with in this list that Numron and Mikanko would eat up would be just, for example, a Crooked Cook in defense position that cannot be destroyed by battle. That is pretty much completely unoutable by 99% of Tenpai lists. If we were playing Numron or anything like that, we would be able to break it. And then the high-end boards that have a billion interactions and are just very tough to deal with are, well, possible to deal with now, I guess. So we have that going for us. So like, for example, Blackwing, we could deal with that. And if our opponent were to, for example, have a Chaos Angel, we can just tribute over with a Kaiju, no real big deal. Or if we're playing Mikanko, we just ignore the Chaos Angel entirely and just ram our Mikankos into it. So yeah, we have a lot we can do that Tenpai cannot. In terms of just like, you know, removing like Ataras, for example, it's pretty free with these other decks, not as free with Tenpai. And it's part of how you set up lethal, which is kind of nuts if you think about it that way. But yeah. Tenpai simply existing enables this freedom, because if you're forced to go first, the instinct you would have had before was to just raw pass, do nothing, and hope for the best. And that was good enough. But now, if you're forced to go first, now you're essentially fighting for your life just because Tenpai exists, right? And just because, like, you don't know what your opponent's on, right? So your opponent could be on Mikanko, and you would be better off passing, but just simply because Tenpai exists, now you more or less have to set up some sort of board, which you wouldn't have been forced to do before because Tenpai did not exist. And a lot of these going second decks did literally nothing if you just passed on an empty board. So yeah, pretty strong stuff if you think about it that way. So if we were actually playing best of 3 though, this changes. So if I am made to go first and I play into, for example, Mikanko now, and I make end board, then I get Mikanko'd all over, you know, my guys get Kaiju'd, and then they reflect battle damage, I am dead. So that happens, and then game 2, I get to choose if I'm going first or second. I can just simply choose going second here, and then game 3, that once it gets to that, my opponent can choose like for me to go first, but then I just simply pass, do nothing, and then I can play on the following turn, and then probably set up easy lethal because Mikanko doesn't have much of a good setup or ability to do things on turn 2 against an empty board. So yeah, same thing with Numron, same general idea. And in best of 3, we would know at this point that we're playing against Mikanko, right? But if we were forced to go first by Tenpai, this situation is different, where our opponent can just kill us with just normal summon Chundra, essentially. So that is what I would call not a very good time. And we would just lose, essentially. And there would be no turn 3. if we were made to go first, we would have to set up a board. So, in best of 3, I think overall, Tenpai going to be better, right? But if we go just by best of 1, like decks like Makanko, Mech Knight, Numron, all of those guys perform better. And you're going to have a pretty rough time against these. Like, just in general, whenever you set up a board, I think these decks can harm you significantly more. Notably, like the rank 8 spam deck, they play under shifter a lot better than Tenpai, so you're doing pretty good here. Specifically, Numron cannot play under shifter unless you hard open Numron calling, I believe. So there's a downside there, but yeah, for the most part, Tenpai, I think just assuming our opponent sets up some sort of end board, this is going to be a bit worse than Numron. Just for example, though, we can play Sphere Mode and Lava Golem, and not just Kaijus in those other 2 decks. So if we normal summon the Sphere Mode here against our opponent, we just remove 3 guys from our opponent's end board just immediately. And there's no real way to do anything about this. So if we were playing against, let's say, for example, yugioh, we can immediately remove more or less their whole board, and they can't really do anything about it. So if we do it with Lava Golem, with Makanko, we go Lava Golem, and then we go Arabesque, returning the Lava Golem, summon Lava Golem again. That outs the entirety of the yugioh end board, and it's not respondable. So simply we tribute over the Unchained guy, and then probably Apollosa, or we do Phantom of Yubel and the Unchained Link 2. Whichever one you're feeling. It doesn't matter too much, I don't think. But yeah, in general, we can do that. And then we can run over the Lava Golem for lethal. And real quick, gotta check this. These guys are destructible, I believe, right? But not by battle. Why are they not destructible by battle? Oh, it's their own effect, that's why. Okay. So they're not destructible by battle, and we can just keep ramming ourselves into the Lava Golem until we have lethal. So these guys start out at 1k, right? So we attack with this one. This guy is 2k, 4k, then the last one is 8k. So that's pretty much just going to be lethal, right? Yeah. There's not a whole lot we can do against this, yeah? So I guess with Numron specifically, if we're playing Lava Golem, we do have one disadvantage against, I guess, Snake Eye, with like Promethean Princess being a fire and Lava Golem being also fire. So that's kind of a thing that's a little bit problematic, and they're destructible by card effect, but I'm sure Makanko is still probably better than Tenpai. In terms of just sheer going second ability, if you're forced to go first, though, I think Tenpai is pretty much about the same. I don't think any of these decks actually have a good going first, so not a whole lot going on here. But then again, there are those Infernoble like files with some Makanko cards in it, so maybe that's good. I don't know. Not enough data on that personally, but I mean, seem pretty consistent and pretty solid. And the Makanko cards are still decent going second cards in general, so you have that going for you. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.